Ladies and gentlemen, Chads and Ballers, may I please introduce to you the big man himself, the biggest of birds out there, Czar Nasty.
The biggest of birds. That is absolute facts.
The
you can take that up
biggest
with anybody
of
watching him play
birds.
ball. That's facts.
That is facts. And I mean, not only was he the biggest of birds, but man was flying around out there stronger and with more purpose than anyone I've ever seen in my life.
That is true.
He's a man. He is a man of direction and pure magnitude on the football field, on the gridiron.
Fastest 40 time on the roster.
He rumbles and he tumbles, to say the least.
And
To say the
fumbles.
absolute minimum. How are you tonight?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm just ready to talk some ball.
I am
Sad that
ready.
there's no more football for months, man.
Me too. Speed, momentum, and violence. That sums up Czar Nasty perfectly. Yo, how we doing? King Rusty, welcome to the chat. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to Season 0, Episode 3 of the NFL Kyro cast. We got a good show for you today. So our first episode, we talked about why this Super Bowl had some of the most interesting story leading up to it from the Bengals and the Rams both, to the point that I named that I thought it was the most interesting Super Bowl of at least like the last decade, which I stand by that. I think leading up to it, it still was that way. We're going to get into our reactions. We're going to get into everything in just a second. And then our second episode, we talked about the awards, a little more on the Super Bowl and previewing that, some last-minute predictions. And then we also, in those episodes, did a quarterback's tier list and a running back's tier list. I don't think we're going to do a tier list today. I thought about throwing a wide receiver tier list on the end of this one, but there are a lot of wide receivers, and every list I could find just had a bunch of them. So I think we're going to have a good enough episode talking about all of our other segments. We have a lot of topics and segments to talk about. Most of them are revolving around the Super Bowl. Probably won't be as long of segments as we've been having the first couple episodes, where we've had like 2 or 3 really long segments. These will probably be a bit shorter, but some good discussion, I think. Sheer violence on the gridiron, baby. NFL team power ranking tier list. We will definitely do that preseason for what we think teams will be. And who knows, we'll do stuff this offseason when news and stuff to talk about comes around for sure. But let's just wrap up the 2022 NFL season, Super Bowl 56. Y'all strapped in? Y'all ready to go? Czar?
Dude, I've been strapped in, man.
The
trust
longest pause of anticipation. Dude,
Nah,
I've been
I'm making sure
strapped
I'm
in.
making sure everything's good to go because it's got to be flawless.
This has got to be a
But-
flawless episode.
It's got to be flawless, unlike Eli Apple's coverage.
Oh, we'll get to Eli Apple. We will get to Eli Apple for certain. Nice. All right, Czar. Do the viewers have your undivided attention or what?
They do. I don't know what all this slander is in the chat, but
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Kyro. My co-host, Czar Nasty, and I are ready to talk about the Super Bowl. NFL Kyrocast Season 0, Episode 3 is a go. Let's get into it. The Los Angeles Rams win Super Bowl 56 versus the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20. Aaron Donald's pressure on 4th and 1, the last play of the game minus the kneel down, finished off the win for the Rams. That came just after an incredible final drive by the Los Angeles Rams offense, in which Cooper Kupp had 6 receptions, 49 yards, and the final lead-capturing touchdown. We're going to get into the refs. We're going to get into Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, Matt Stafford, Jalen Ramsey, Eli Apple, and Joe Burrow, all in more detail later on in the episode. But Czar, as someone who picked the Rams to win, as someone who is a massive Sean McVay fan, what was your reaction to the game?
oh goodness, where in the world do I start? Well, first of all, we knew exactly what was going to happen with Cincinnati's offensive line. We knew they were going to be able to handle the Rams' pass rush. Aaron Donald, we all know what he did. Von Miller, We all know he still got it, even though he's a little older now. We all know he still got it in him. Leonard Floyd, he had a great game as well. So I think the Rams defense and Cincinnati Bengals offensive line, I think those were the two. I think those were the two groups that really determined the outcome of this game. One played in a positive way, and one team played in a negative way. And I think that went out exactly the way I expected it to.
Okay.
So it was a great game, but in the end, am I really surprised by the outcome? Not necessarily.
I'm not surprised by the outcome either. I went into that a big a big Bengals fan, not a fan, but like I was rooting for the Bengals. I had picked them to win, but my gut feeling it was closer than I thought. I was predicting it to be a close game. I wanted it to be a close game, and I tend to predict based on what I want to happen. But I went into that game with the gut feeling of this might be a blowout because the Rams just really don't have holes on their team, you know? And like nothing notable. And the Bengals have very notable holes, mainly the offensive line, as you mentioned. And parts of their defense are very streaky. Their defense, I think, was slept on. I think the Bengals' defense had a much better unit all year than people give them credit for. But they definitely have some really low moments. But it was a really good freaking game. It was a really good freaking game. I feel like I was talking to my brother about it. We watched it together, and we both said the same thing moments after the game ended. It ended so fast. Like that 4th-and-1 play, even though everyone knew that had the potential to be the last play of the game, it did not feel like it was going to be the last play of the game. And so when Joe Burrow was trying to spin out of the Aaron Donald sack and lofts one over to, I can't remember his name, the guy whose last name starts with a P. It's their backup running back, I believe. We all thought he was going to make the catch, you know? No one felt like I did not feel like the game was ending in that moment. And then the pass did not complete, and the game just ended. The Bengals didn't call their last timeout, which they shouldn't have. That would have just prolonged it. But they just knelt and the game was over. It ended so fast. It felt like the ending of the game went by so quickly. It was over before I could even blink, it felt like. King Rusty bet Bengals by a touchdown. I was thinking it was going to be like 27-24 Bengals was my prediction. I got the halftime prediction right, which if you're in the Kyro's Discord, you saw me post that clip, most likely. But yeah, absolutely crazy stuff. And we're going to go through step-by-step, break down all of the big talking points from this game, all the big moments. Yeah, I know, Rambo didn't take the bet. It's messed up. But I want to get this out of the way. I really don't like it when people talking about sports, sometimes it's blatant, but I don't like it when people blame officiating for a game. It depends on how bad it is. There are moments where it is definitely a valid thing to blame the outcome of a game on. But a lot of times, it's not as lopsided as people act like it is. And plus, it takes all the fun out of sports viewing when people blame everything on luck or something that was unfair. You know, where people just try to take away from the victors in a game. But that said, let's get into the refs, the calls, the no calls, the bad calls, etc. First of all, I just want to say, I was going to say this at the end of the segment, but I just want to say it now. Personally, I thought this was one of the best officiated games I've seen in a long time. At least one of the best officiated Super Bowls I've seen in a long time. I love how few penalties there were. I love letting the players play, especially in a massive moment. I mean, the big stage in sports, at least American sports, is the Super Bowl. And I like letting the superstars just play and display their mastery of the game. So I loved how few penalties there were. However, of the few penalties there were, / the ones that there not were, if you know what I mean, there was a little bit, I say a little bit, kind of a lot of bit of controversy around them, but I honestly think they balanced each other out pretty well. So the first one of note is the Bengals' first play of the second half was a 75-yard touchdown pass from Joe Burrow to T. Higgins, who, while being covered by Jalen Ramsey, we'll talk about him more later, clearly in the replay, grabbed his face mask for a moment, which threw Jalen Ramsey off. T. Higgins got the separation, caught the huge, massive touchdown. And there was no call for offensive pass interference, face mask, offensive holding, nothing like that. And it was a massive momentum shift. A lot of people don't think without that play, the Bengals were even going to get back in that game. Czar, what do you think about that play?
Oh, about the play? Oh goodness. Well, I mean, I think I saw what everybody else saw. The clear face mask. Not only could you see the clear face mask, but you could see Jalen Ramsey's head torqued in an awkward way. So, I mean, what else can you say other than it was just a screwed up call or no call, if you will. So
I think it was definitely a missed call. However, when you watch it in real time, Jalen Ramsey's head turns for such a split second, like such a small amount of time. It does not look like his face mask was really grabbed, if you know what I mean. Like if you watch the play in real time and like focus on Jalen Ramsey, obviously in the slow-mo replay, you can clearly tell that T. Higgins grabs his face mask and pulls his head around it a little bit. But it's such a minuscule instant. I can understand completely why they didn't really see it to throw the flag in the moment. But that's just me personally. I haven't seen many other people say that, or just I haven't seen anyone else say that. That was just my own thoughts when I was watching it. When I rewatched the play in real time, that was what I thought. I was like, oh, I can totally see how they missed that call because it is so quick that if you're not, obviously the refs should be looking for it, but like it was so quick. Even when I was looking for it, I was like, oh, yeah, that's not super obvious, super like in the real time moment, but the slow-mo replay for sure it was obvious and blatant. It's kind of made up for though. We're gonna get there. Yeah, let's just get to the other big one. Pretty much it was that one big play for the Bengals as far as what people are blaming officiating on, and then it was one or two plays for the Rams down the stretch that people are also talking about. Mainly that holding call on third down during the Rams' last drive. Cooper Kupp, it was on third down. Who knows? Even if they didn't get that call, it would have been like what? Was it 4th and 1, 4th and 3? It was a short down and distance. Czar.
I believe so, but if it's 4th down, then that means Cincinnati's going to get the ball. So that penalty gave the Rams.
No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. They were down 4 with less than 2 minutes left. They were going to go for that 4th and short. You know?
It was a goal. I believe it was a goal-to-go situation, and so I believe that penalty gave an automatic first down. But I can't remember if it was third down.
Yes, it did. But you said the Bengals were going to get the ball back.
Oh, I meant to say the Rams. If I said Bengals, I meant to say Rams.
Okay, I understand.
I mean,
what you mean now.
I don't think. I will say though that I don't know. I might be jumping out of turn here, but that call, I was honestly fine with it. I had no.
Based on how they had been playing, I
had no problem. I had no problem with the call.
It's one of those things that
to me.
People say you could call holding every single play. It has to be blatantly obvious and over the top for it to actually be where it should be called. And based on the way they had been calling the whole rest of the game as far as letting them play, like we mentioned, that's where people are getting hung up on that holding call that they don't believe it should have been. I tend to lean on the I wouldn't have called that side, but it did pretty much make up for the quote-unquote gift of a 75-yard touchdown to open the half for the Bengals. What I love is that it wasn't decided by the officiating. I think that's the bottom line. The game was not decided by calls. It was not decided by refs. It was decided by Aaron Donald being a freaking superhuman and wrestling through a lacking Bengals offensive line to stop Joe Burrow and the Bengals on 4th and 1. I didn't realize this until after the game, I believe. But is it true that on the 3rd and 1 before that, it was not Joe Mixon that ran, it was the backup? Is that right?
I believe Samaje Perine was out there on the field the whole time.
Why on earth was Joe Mixon not on the... Why was he not in the game?
Hey, ask my college classmates. They don't know either. They're like, who is this guy on the field? Who's this Oklahoma nobody? So
I don't
know. To see Joe even get that ball off on the 4th down and to make somewhat of a catchable ball in that situation,
it really
was
looked like
impressive
it should have been
itself.
caught.
I thought I thought Piron was going to dive for that ball and catch it. He had plenty of space, but
Yeah.
I don't really know what to say. I was kind of speechless on that. I remember looking and being like, why didn't he dive for the ball? It's the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I really did not feel like the game was ending on that play. That's why I said it felt like it ended so fast. Yeah, bottom line is, I don't have any problem really with the officiating. There's a quote-unquote really bad no call for both teams that led to a second half touchdown, and that's about as even as it can get. I think I'm really happy with the officiating. I see more people agreeing with what I just said than I see people complaining about it, but there's still enough people complaining about it to make it noticeable. I would say it's probably like 60-40. People like the refs. I'd say 65% probably, and probably, 35, 40 percent of people I see complaining about the refs, but people are going to do what they're going to do. I will say, to be fair, and play devil's advocate, if I'm a diehard fan of either one of those teams, the individual play in favor of the opposing team irks me, drives me crazy. If I'm a diehard Bengals fan, that holding call that should not have been a holding call haunts me forever, till my grave, drives me crazy. If I'm a Rams fan and I lose that game, the T. Higgins 75-yard touchdown no call drives me crazy for the rest of my days. So, to be fair, I understand where the fan bases are coming from. For bandwagon Bengals fans or Rams fans who are just cheering for a team in the Super Bowl, I don't think there's any reason for you to get hung up or mad about that, not even your team. But at the same time, the fact that there was one of those plays on both sides balances it out, and I don't think there's really anything that anyone could be upset about at that point.
Yeah, and one thing, let me just be clear about something. For anyone in chat who knows me personally, I think y'all know that I'm a notorious referee hater. Hater's the wrong word. I complain about officiating quite regularly. So, for me to say that this officiating wasn't terrible, I think that carries some weight. Do I think there were missed calls or missed no calls in the game? Yes. One incident we're not really talking about as much is perhaps the missed holding call on Jalen Ramsey. T. Higgins in the end zone. Jalen Ramsey grabbing his shirt and stretching it out like Tom Brady's new Under Armour shirt, right? That's not getting any attention either. That wasn't called a hold. In the NFL, corners get away with a lot. That's how it's been for years, and that's how it'll be in the future. They're good at getting away with things. And while I'm not a fan of it, I just don't see it. I just don't see it going away anytime soon. Do I think the game was decided by the officiating? No, I don't. Which I think was a positive, because usually the officiating kind of benefits one team more than another. I think it was still equal in the sense that there were calls missed on both sides and they didn't carry a bias going in.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Pretty much everything. But yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and get the refs little tidbit out of the way at the beginning here, because I don't find that topic interesting like at all. It's just kind of annoying. But figured we'd go ahead and throw our 2 cents in on it. Pretty much the same points you're hearing everybody else say. But let's segue into something that's actually entertaining. And this next topic, this next segment is going to be about Super Bowl cornerbacks and the similarities, the comparisons, and the contrast between Jalen Ramsey and Eli Apple. They are two very different levels of cornerback who have some very big similarities, and had some very big similarities specifically in that game, in the Super Bowl. They're both trash talkers, but pretty much, I want to say pretty much every corner that I've seen in the NFL is a trash talker. It's arguably the hardest position in football to play. I've played corner. I hated playing corner. Playing corner sucks. Having a man-on-man, the greatest athletes on the planet, and stick with them and not knowing where they're going to go is so difficult. It's cornerbacks, especially the good ones, have so much respect from me. That being said, because of how difficult that is and because of how good they are, a lot of smack talk and a lot of that arrogance comes out a lot. The difference is, for the most part, I mean, everyone knows Jalen Ramsey is probably the best corner in the league right now. He had a bad game. He honestly wasn't even great in the playoffs from what I saw. But that game was not a vintage Jalen Ramsey game. Dude allowed the one-handed massive bomb to Jamar Chase in the first half, which was the first really sign of life from the Bengals offense at the time. And they ended up only getting 3 out of it, which sucked for the Bengals, but that was on Jalen Ramsey. Yes, there was the no call, but the 75-yard touchdown from T. Higgins was on Jalen Ramsey. And on the 4th and 1, last play of the game, Jamar Chase, yeah, it didn't matter in the end because the offensive line didn't give Joe Burrow time, but Jamar Chase literally beat Jalen Ramsey on the go route, on the streak, and probably would have got a touchdown to win the game, seal the game, or at least get a massive first down to get in field goal range, only down 3. So Jalen Ramsey, big smack talker, normally a great corner, but did not have a good game, in my opinion, or pretty much anyone that watched opinion from everything I saw. But playing corner is very difficult. I'm not saying letting up 1 or 2 touchdowns means you're a bad corner, but definitely Jalen Ramsey did not have his best game, especially when it's a rookie that was doing most of that to him. The T. Higgins 75-yard touchdown, there was the no call. You can say what you will about that play. But Jamar Chase, at least twice, who knows what else that we didn't even see, seemed to be cooking Jalen Ramsey as a rookie, which is pretty spectacular. But let's talk about Eli Apple. A lot of people on Twitter the past few days have been smoking that Eli Apple pack. And I can't lie. So I wanted the Bengals to win. I really like a lot of the Bengals players. The Bengals team was just really entertaining, really fun, a lot of characters, a lot of really fun people to watch. There are people on both teams, the Rams and the Bengals, that I really enjoy watching, that I'm a fan of, and people that I don't like. I don't really like Jalen Ramsey. I don't really like, this is not popular, but I don't really like Odell Beckham. But I really, on the Bengals, my least favorite player on the Bengals is Eli Apple, dude. Eli Apple talks trash like he's Jalen Ramsey when he is the most average corner I've ever seen. I'm not going to say he's garbage. He's not utter trash, but he talks like he is a first-team All-Pro when he's like a C corner at best. The thing is, I want to say he had a lot of hype and expectations out of college. I don't know if it was his combine or what, but I remember hearing a lot about like his speed and athleticism, but he's just never really lived up to that potential and those expectations. Yet he still talks like he's a superstar. After the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, in which he got burned at least once or twice for what I saw were touchdowns by like Tyreek killing them. The one good play, yes, it was a massive play that ended up swaying the momentum and tide of the game that ultimately led to the Bengals winning. Eli Apple's one notable good play from the AFC Championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs was the last play before halftime. He is the one that made the tackle to stop Tyreek Hill from getting into the end zone. He thought that was good enough reason to go onto Twitter after that game and just start talking smack, waving goodbye. I didn't pull up the tweets or any of the articles talking about what he said after the AFC Championship to Tyreek Hill and McCole Hardman, 2 receivers for the Chiefs. But pretty much was just calling them little boys, little puppies, that kind of thing. And he's Eli Apple, talking to one of the, I think, top 5 receivers in the league, and Tyreek Hill, and then just a really good receiver, McCole Hardman. Not a superstar or anything, but McCole Hardman's good as far as receiver goes. I would say McCole Hardman is a better receiver than Eli Apple is a corner, probably. But Eli Apple starts talking all the smack. And when you talk a lot of smack, especially when you're not actually that good to back it up, you paint a big old target on your back. And holy crap, dude. After allowing Cooper Kupp to win the game alone, not to mention everything else, all the other Eli Apple blunders, especially in the Super Bowl, that big old target he was painting on his back, which, by the way, he did not only paint that target from the AFC Championship game and tweeting afterwards. He had been painting this target for years, even on his older teams. And so after talking all that smack on Twitter after the AFC Championship game, giving up the winning touchdown for the Rams in the Super Bowl, everybody came out of all the alleyways, everyone came out of every nook, cranny, crevice to hate on Eli Apple, and it is absolutely hilarious. So just at the most recent people he had been, beefing with on Twitter, Tyreek Hill and McCall Hardman. I'm trying to see here. I thought I had it pulled up here. I may have failed.
I've got one Twitter comment in particular that
Hold on,
really stood out to me.
I found it. McCall Hardman at Eli Apple right after the game. A video of him holding his Super Bowl ring from 2020. And he says, at Eli Apple, it's cool, big bro. You might get one of these one day. But in the meantime, just go get better at your craft. Which, honestly, that's probably the most respectful roast anybody said about Eli Apple. The whole scenario, the whole situation. People start talking. McCall Hardman comes back again and says, Eli Apple, I wish you were a better corner, bro. Then the game-winning touchdown wouldn't have been scored on you. People laughing. After him getting cooked, people calling him burnt toast. Someone said, it smells like apple pie and SoFi. That one's hilarious. Tyreek Hill said something as well. I don't have that one pulled up. We have some random female NFL analyst saying, such an incredible experience providing coverage at my first Super Bowl, unlike Eli Apple. Absolute obliteration. And then his former teammate Michael Thomas in a tweet said, Eli gonna Eli, about choking and about talking a big game and not backing it up. So Eli Apple getting absolutely cooked on the field and on the internet, which, I mean, he pretty much just had it coming. Called Tyreek Hill a baby after tackling him one time. Offering to hook them up with Super Bowl tickets after they won the AFC Championship. Eli Apple talked all the smoke, didn't back it up, which he never really has. And he reaped exactly what he was sowing. So, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Alright, did you have any thought-out, developed, constructive takes on Eli Apple?
Just one quick thing about Eli Apple. What really stuck out to me was a comment made by Michael Thomas, because you brought up Eli Apple's tenure as Michael Thomas's teammate in New Orleans. Not only was he his teammate in New Orleans for a very short stint, he was Michael Thomas's teammate at the Ohio State University.
I forgot that.
These guys have known each other for a long time. Eli Apple was the 10th overall pick in 2016. Michael Thomas got drafted in the second round. So we talked about the hype that Eli Apple received coming out of college. The hype was real. And in the Super Bowl, he made a Super Bowl. Congrats to him. Honestly, when we look at Jalen Ramsey and Eli Apple, was every play a disaster? No. Particularly with Jalen Ramsey, I don't think he played that bad of a game. But I do think the plays where he didn't do his job, they were costly.
They were major momentum plays for sure.
When he gave up yards, he gave up chunks of yards.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's such a good point about Eli Apple and Michael Thomas. Like, it's not just people that he's smack talking to, like, on opposing teams. It's people that he was on the same team with, saying the same things, talking the same smack, the same beef, it's basically a testament to not necessarily his character, but just he is not the kind of guy that has made his teammates even want to defend him. Like, he kind of digs himself into a hole, writing checks that other people are not going to cash, kind of thing. And he definitely doesn't cash himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, shoot, Eli and Michael Thomas, they won the first ever college football playoff together.
That's crazy too.
Along with the other studs on that team, like an Ezekiel Elliott or a Cardale Jones. But you get my point. These guys have known each other. These guys have known each other for a long time. I really wonder what Zeke or Cardale Jones or JT Barrett would have to say about that. I would be really interested to know.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I imagine it'd probably be something similar, or they'd probably just say they don't really have an opinion to stay out of it, if I had to guess. But let's move on to our next topic, and that has to do with the man, the myth, the legend that is the Cooper Kupp. And here's the question that I want to pose that people have already been talking about. I think we know the answer, but we're going to talk about it through and through. Did Cooper Kupp have the best receiver/receiving season of all time? Was this the best season by a wide receiver of all time? Let me just lay out the facts. Combining the regular season with the playoffs, so including both, combining them, he had 178 receptions, almost 180 catches in one season, approximately 2,400 yards, 22 touchdowns, and over the stretch of the entire regular season and the playoffs, which is, they didn't get a bye, so that would have been like, 21 games? He averaged, over that entire stretch, 115 yards a game about. Through 21 games, he averaged 115 yards a game. 22 touchdowns, 178 catches, 2,400 yards. Super Bowl MVP. And was the first wide receiver, even if it was completely out of spite towards the MVP winner, which we're not even going to get into that, but was the first receiver in 2 decades to get a vote for MVP. Czar, is this the best wide receiver season of all time? I think it's hard to say that it's not.
That's a good question, but I don't think I have an answer for that. I think that's too. It's an easy question to ask. Let me rephrase. It's a simple question to ask, but a very hard question to answer. I don't think we'll have an answer to it ever. If we do get an answer, it may be a little bit, because it got so many seasons of the NFL. How many seasons has the NFL had? Over 100, right? Because who remembers the little 100 patches on the uniforms? Guys, we've had a lot of good receivers in the league over the past 100 years. Now, granted, I know it's kind of the baseball problem. Guys that were good at baseball in 1734, they were way better than their competition, okay? They blew them out. But, I mean, y'all get what I'm saying. Greatness is greatness, and when we look at it from a historical perspective, we have to compare the guys to the rest of the people in their generation who they played against, right? So, I don't know if I have an answer to it. Is it one of the greatest? Yes. Could it potentially be the greatest? I would say yes.
Yeah. Let me just say
Simple
this.
answer.
Simple answer, yeah. Let me just say this. Do I think Cooper Kupp is the best receiver in the National Football League right now? No. Do I think Cooper Kupp is the most talented, most gifted wide receiver in the NFL right now? No. But I think Cooper Kupp is the receiver in the NFL whose potential was absolutely maximized more than anybody else. I'm not going to call him a scheme receiver by any means. However, Sean McVay, and I don't remember the offensive coordinator's name, but he's about to be a coach for a team. I believe he just got signed to the Vikings, but I can't remember his name.
He did. He bounced, and he's in Minneapolis now. So.
Yes, but that is to say, peace out, King Rusty. Sean McVay and that offensive coordinator maximized Cooper Kupp's potential the absolute most that they could. And I don't think the other most talented receivers in the NFL can do that. I do think this is probably... who can say it's but it's definitely up there, one of the best wide receiver seasons of all time. Not even just statistical. Everyone saw in that last drive from the Rams offense, Cooper Kupp was the best player on the field on that drive. And everybody knew it. That's why I got Super Bowl MVP. That last drive doesn't happen. The Super Bowl MVP is Aaron Donald or someone on the Bengals if they win. But Cooper Kupp, who had already been having a great game, just dominated in the clutchest moment. But not only is it the statistics, but he's also that guy. He is that good. I don't think Cooper Kupp, I think he's an S-tier receiver, which if we were going to do a receivers tier tonight, which I debated, he would have definitely been up there. I think there's 5 S-tier receivers in the league probably, but we're not going to get into that right now. Cooper Kupp this year, statistically and otherwise, has been in a league of his own. one of the greatest receiving seasons of all time. 178 receptions, 2,400 yards, about 22 touchdowns, and about 115 yards per game for 21 games. Absolute insanity. Cooper Kupp is insane. Before the season, I would have said he's probably a B+, B to A tier receiver. Now he's indisputably top 5 in the league, but there's a case to be made for number 1, obviously. Absolute insane stuff. He also is so much bigger than you'd think. He doesn't look on the field like he's a big dude, but he's 6'2", like 215 or something like that. Somewhere between 200 and 230, 6'2", which is a good size receiver. Not the biggest. He's not Mike Evans, but he's not small. That's like around DeAndre Hopkins. Even, I think DeAndre Hopkins is only like 6'1", if I'm remembering correctly. So he has those tangibles as well, and those physical gifts as well. He's not all grind and grit. He's not all high motor. He's actually got some of that physical gift as well, which I think gets overlooked for him. But absolute insanity. Anything else to say on Cooper Kupp, Sar? And this season? You already pretty much gave all your thoughts. I think it's one of the greatest of all time. Don't think we can label it as the greatest, which I understand that. What's up, Doomus? Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the chat. How's it going?
I think the biggest step up that Cooper Kupp made this season was we all knew he was a reliable receiver, right?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't drop balls. He's got good hands, right? He's got good football IQ. He's fast. He's just all reliable. But his route running this season, I think it took a huge leap.
Yeah.
And his route running was already good.
Yes.
But when I saw him run the routes last night in those goal-to-go situations, they're down at the end of the Super Bowl. And if Kyrogus will admit that I'm right here, Kyrogus, what did I DM you on Instagram? Who did I say was going to get the game-winning TD?
You did say Cooper Kupp was, but if anyone was going to get it, I think they would have said Cooper Kupp as well.
Well, you get what I'm saying. And honestly, that also was because of the Bengals' offensive line. But we've been over that. We all know how they showed up to not play. But, guys, his route running was great. Did Eli Apple make it look a little better? Maybe, but it looked good the entire game. It's looked good all season. So I think that was just the dream matchup that Sean McVay and Kevin O'Connell could have asked for.
For sure. Another thing to mention about Cooper Kupp, and we talked about how Sean McVay and the offensive coordinator maximized his potential, brought out his full potential, at least what appears to be his full potential, who knows. But also, it goes to show the difference that a good quarterback can make. He was not ever doing this with Jared Goff at QB. I'm tired of hating on Jared Goff, but it is just so apparent the difference between him and Stafford when you look at both teams, the Lions and the Rams, and what they did before and after the switch. We're going to talk about Matt Stafford here in a minute, but he should get a lot of credit as well for this incredible Cooper Kupp season, for sure. And they all get to share in being Super Bowl champions. Let's move on to another Rams superstar, arguably the best player in the NFL, or at least the most dominant at one's particular position in the NFL. And that is the man, the myth, the literal legend. Will go down in history as one of the all-time greatest defensive players of all time, Aaron Donald. But where does he rank all time as far as defensive players or defensive linemen? We'll get into it. Let's just look at his career. Aaron Donald has played football in the National Football League for 8 years. In those 8 years, he has been selected to the Pro Bowl all 8 times. 8 years, 8 Pro Bowls. Pro Bowls don't mean that much to some people, whatever. 8 years, 8 Pro Bowls. He has been an all-star his entire career. 7 first-team All-Pros. Now that means something. 7 first-team All-Pros in 8 years in the league. And I think the only year he was not first-team All-Pro, if I'm not mistaken, was his rookie year. In those 8 years, 441 tackles, 150 tackles for loss, 98 sacks, and now 1 Super Bowl ring. Rambo, what do you make of Aaron Donald all time? How high up do you think he is as far as players in general, defensive players, and defensive linemen?
Well, he's pretty freaking high, if you ask me. Not only does he have a Super Bowl ring and Super Bowl win on his resume, but he also has another Super Bowl appearance.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I think that does carry weight. And
Agreed.
guys, in that Super Bowl, the Rams lost, but do y'all remember the score to that Super Bowl? Super Bowl 53? The score was
Defensive.
10-3. The Rams only gave up 10 points to the New England Patriots offense. And they didn't give up a touchdown until late in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, say what you want about the guy. He talks too much, fights too much, whatever. I've heard all the criticism that you can throw at Aaron Donald's way. It doesn't matter. The dude's a legend. You cannot dispute
Yeah,
the greatness of his young career. Does he have more in the tank? I think so. I think he's got plenty more
agreed. And
that he can showcase, which is part of what makes me rank him so high. He's so young and he's already doing this at a high level. You watch his workouts, you just look at his physique, like the dude works hard, the dude cares. I think he's got a lot more left in the tank, and so I think at this point he can only improve, which is scary.
I agree. I think he's got a lot left in the tank. That's actually, I meant to say this at the beginning of the segment, but why I wanted to talk about his career is because at the time that this game was about to happen and after it ended, there was some speculation from some people that Aaron Donald might retire after this, which I did not believe for a second, and I don't think most people thought that. Zara's saying he's young. He's not young necessarily. He is 30 years old. He's going to be 31 here in about 3 months. He'll be 31 years old, which is not young by any means, but he has already built a resume of being a top, complete peak of the mountain defensive player of all time, and he's only 31. Meaning, who knows? We're going to get into, at the very end of our stream here, we're going to talk about way too early 2023 Super Bowl 57 picks. There's not a bad chance that the Rams go back and compete for another Super Bowl next year. And Aaron Donald will add to his tackles, add to his TFLs, his sacks, and maybe add to his Super Bowl ring, and I can almost guarantee you he'll add to his Pro Bowls and his All-Pros. Absolutely insane. In my opinion, I think Aaron Donald is the greatest defensive lineman of all time. At least, I think he will go down as that. Even if he's not quite there yet, I think with the resume he has built at 30 years old, if he spends, 4 more years in the league at least or something like that, how much... And people are retiring younger, but it's player to player. Aaron Donald doesn't strike me as the type of guy who feels like retiring soon, but who knows what he's going to end up deciding to do. I think he will go down as the greatest defensive lineman of all time, and I don't think you could really make an argument against him being probably top 3 of all time. Who would even be in that conversation? I think of Lawrence Taylor, I think of Deion Sanders, I think of like Ray Lewis, people like that. That would be arguable. I don't know who I might put him above. I'd have to really think about it and go into details on statistics and accolades and things like that. But on just face value, he's right up there with those guys. Top 5 defensive player of all time. I think it's pretty easy to say he will go down as that. And I don't think it's ridiculous to say he'll be in the top 2 or 3. Who knows how high he can go. But I think he's already pretty much built up a resume to be about top 5 defensive player of all time. I believe so. So we just talked about a couple of Rams superstars. We're going to talk about another one, and we're going to go leaning back a little bit more towards beef like we were with Eli Apple as far as Twitter goes. So I'm going to open a couple of articles here I had linked and saved.
Oh, man.
And we're going to talk about...
Where would this show be
without
the goodness of Twitter?
Over Reggie White, you got to be high. I mean, so I was looking at this list I have on my phone. I made this a long time ago. I had
Reggie
Aaron
White
Donald
will
at
forever
1,
be an icon.
and I had Reggie White at 2. I'm not dissing Reggie White at all. I'm not saying Aaron Donald is already better or greater than Reggie White. I'm saying based on what we have seen so far and how much time is left, like Czar hinted at, I don't think it's out of the question to say Aaron Donald will likely go down, considered the number 1 defensive lineman of all time.
Aaron Donald.
Okay, look, that's what
Aaron
I'm saying.
Donald
Go look up
can.
Reggie White's stats. Aaron Donald hasn't completed his career yet. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying
Aaron
Aaron
Donald
Donald is.
could potentially eclipse Reggie White if he wins another Super Bowl or two and continues to put up insane stats and perhaps improve them.
Anyways,
Reggie White put the fear in the eyes of everybody. He probably scared his teammates, dude.
yes,
So
none of what I was saying was to diss Reggie White or to slight Reggie White or throw shade at Reggie White. All I was
I'm
saying
just showing
is,
the man respect. OG.
I know. All I was saying is, Aaron Donald, where he's at now and how much time he likely has left, could very well. It's very plausible that that would happen. That he would go down and considered the best defensive lineman of all time. I don't think top 2 is disrespectful to say he's already probably in that conversation. Anyways, that was all I meant by that. Moving on, though. Let's talk about Matthew Stafford, and there is some discussion on if he is a Hall of Famer. Now, I kind of threw this out there in one of our first 2 streams about Matthew Stafford, talking about the stories building up to the Super Bowl and who should feel pressure and what kind of the key points were for some of the key players. And I threw out there that Matthew Stafford would probably be a Hall of Famer if he got this Super Bowl ring. I don't take back saying that likely probably will happen based on what the Hall of Fame is now. But that doesn't necessarily mean I think that is what should happen. I just think with that Super Bowl ring under his belt, people are in love with Matthew Stafford right now. I think that he probably will end up in the Hall of Fame. Do I think he should, though? Well, let's see what some other people think first. What got this discussion really bubbling and really hot was Richard Sherman on Twitter. And I'll just go ahead and start reading you what the legendary corner, Richard Sherman, had to say about Matt Stafford being in the Hall of Fame. He says, the Hall of Fame bar is incredibly low now. It's like a participation trophy. Talking about Matthew Stafford. No all-decade teams, no all-pros, no MVP, 1 Pro Bowl, not even MVP of the Super Bowl. Never considered the best in any year that he played. All he has is 1 Super Bowl ring, and he says at least Matt Ryan has an MVP. Oh, Matt Ryan. And then people high off the Matt Stafford win, obviously replying to Richard Sherman, he ends up going on to say he did nothing spectacular. It's really a macrocosm of his career. He did good, not great. He made a few wow passes, made a few facepalm passes. Aaron Donald and Vaughn are the 2 Hall of Famers that he should thank. Really not high in Matthew Stafford's love at the moment. Richard Sherman. There is no measuring stick that makes Stafford a Hall of Famer other than playing in the most passer-happy decade in NFL history. Inflated numbers make every QB that starts 10-plus year a Hall of Famer, based on how it's been talked about these days, is what he's saying. Someone said, let Stafford have his day. He says, he gets his day, brother, but just throwing around Hall of Famer like that irks me. So many had to be the most dominant to make it. Which I think Richard Sherman makes a ton of freaking really fair and valid and really good points. We'll get into all that in a second, but at Richard Sherman, they're very much directed at Richard Sherman. Matthew Stafford's wife, Kelly Stafford, tweets or makes a post on Instagram. I'm about to read it for you. She says, not directly to Richard Sherman, I don't believe, but just in response to all of this. And there's more that Richard Sherman said, but that was the basic gist of all of his feelings and his points. Dumas says, he's low-key right. He's a solid quarterback who got unfortunate with the Lions. That's pretty much what I agree. We're going to get into it in just a second. Kelly Stafford posts a little clip of Matthew Stafford smiling and waving at the camera, saying, hi, haters, at Richard Sherman. And then she goes on this rant on her Instagram story that says, can y'all just let him enjoy this? Talking about her husband, Matt Stafford. It went from Matthew can't win to Matthew can't win against winning teams to Matthew can't win big games to Matthew can't win playoff games to Matthew can't win at all. And now the debate on the Hall of Fame. She says, we shouldn't even be talking about the Hall of Fame because he isn't done playing the game. If you don't believe he is a Hall of Famer, I can't wait for him to prove you wrong in his remaining years. Just like he did in 1 year to everyone who said all the things listed above. So let's table this talk until he actually retires. Thank you. Obviously not liking in the midst of his greatest career achievement, there being a lot of discussion as far as discrediting him. And then last little tidbit I'll throw in is Julian Edelman said about the situation: 50,000 passing yards, a Super Bowl win in his first year with a capable team. Give this man his flowers. He's a Hall of Famer, and his arm talent is some of the best that we've ever seen. So, support from a Super Bowl MVP, Julian Edelman. I tend to lean the Richard Sherman side. I wish Hall of Fame was more exclusive, for sure. I understand both sides of the argument. I don't want to discredit Matt Stafford. He is a great quarterback. He's a very good quarterback. I don't think he's built up himself a career worthy of being a Hall of Famer yet, just because he played pretty good for a bad team, exactly like Richard said. He played pretty good for a bad team and has now won once on a very, very good team. I mean, even Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl once. Like, I'm not saying Matt Stafford is Joe Flacco or Jimmy Garoppolo or whatever, but I am saying winning one Super Bowl on a very good team with a very good coaching staff and supporting cast does not make you a Hall of Famer. Playing in the league and doing okay, playing as a B+ or whatever for 10 years and winning nothing does not make you a Hall of Famer. I tend to lead the Richard Sherman side. I think you agree with me, Czar, but I want to hear what your thoughts are.
Now, I agree. I do agree with Richard Sherman in that we're kind of watering down. We're kind of diluting, if you will, the prestige that the Hall of Fame offers. But guys, we also got to give attention to Kelly's perspective, because Matthew Stafford's been getting disrespected a lot throughout his career. Is it because he put on that Detroit Lions?
Because he wore that Detroit blue,
probably,
bro.
But y'all, Matthew Stafford going into the final drive of the game, what's the graphic that they would put up every single time? Game-winning drive king. He's had this many game-winning drives. Can he do it again? Oh, well, he just did it again. Right? Matthew Stafford. Let's just say the guy's dang good. Congratulate him for his Super Bowl. You know, we see this more often in basketball. We try to compare different players in different eras, and we say, "Oh, well, who's the greatest?" We play one-on-one. Who would win? Well, first of all, basketball is not a one-on-one sport. Little sidebar. Okay, now I'm back in. Second of all, let's just appreciate greatness. I mean, we don't do that enough. And I know this is kind of like the cliche. I know this is the cliche line and cliche talking point, but as I've gotten older, y'all,
in your
some
old
of these
20-year-old age,
in my old age of 20 and a half years old, some of these conversations are just silly. Let's just congratulate the man on his Super Bowl. He played a great game. He threw 2 picks. One of them was pretty wild. Went off of 18's hands. If we want to talk about somebody that didn't really have the best game in the Super Bowl, it was number 18 for the Rams.
One of them was a bomb to the end zone, and I respect that one, bro. I respect just going, my balls are massive, I'm launching this one to the freaking painted field, bro.
And Coach McVay even said it himself. What he loved about Matthew Stafford this season was his resiliency and his ability to just turn the page, to move on to the next play. He had a short memory. I had a coach when I was in 7th grade, and when he'd see a guy screw up on the field, it was a simple turn the page, next play. That's done. You're not going to go back and read that same page. You already read it. We're going forward. That's Matthew Stafford this season to a T. So this Hall of Fame conversation is silly. If we're going to be technical and look at Richard Sherman's post, yes, I agree. Do I think Matthew Stafford could still make the Hall of Fame? Yes, I do. I think if they go win the Super Bowl again next season, then I think it's time we can start having the conversation.
So, that's kind of where I was starting, with the whole Richard Sherman thing. But let's just end that segment with this. you cannot deny that Matthew Stafford is clutch. You cannot You cannot deny that Matthew Stafford is clutch. You cannot deny that Matthew Stafford is a very good football player, a very good quarterback. But you can argue and you can debate whether or not he should be a Hall of Famer. And I think that speaks for itself on how good he is. Now, I agree with Richard Sherman so far. I don't think he has done enough to be a Hall of Fame quarterback or just a Hall of Fame football player. I don't think that means he won't be. I can very well see him being inducted. But yeah, like you said, if he comes back and wins another one next year, that only adds to the resume even more in a very big way. He's just backing it up and proving it at that point. And we're going to talk about next Super Bowl in just a little bit. We only got a couple more segments to go, and this will be a nice little episode. But yeah, it's pretty much all I got to say on the Matthew Stafford Hall of Famer situation. I personally don't think he should be considered a lock yet, but I don't think that means he won't anyways, and I don't think that means he won't actually earn it in the future to come. Let's talk about one of our last topics, pretty much the last thing I want to say about this Super Bowl before we close the book on this 2022 NFL season. And that is, I want to pose this question and explore this topic a little bit. It's something we kind of already touched on before the Super Bowl, but now that we know how the Super Bowl, what the results are, let's open our minds and think about it a little bit more. And that is this question. Have Joe Burrow and the Bengals peaked? That is the question I want to pose. The reason I say that, obviously they have holes in their team that I likely think they will address and probably patch up pretty well in the draft and the offseason, free agency, things like that. But the problem is, and it's what I talked about in our very first stream about why this is such an amazingly interesting Super Bowl, is because it felt like both of these teams were really desperate for this win. And the main thing I was saying that for the Bengals, when people like to say, oh, Joe Burrow's great and he's young, he's going to have plenty of time to make it back here. Technically, yes, you are correct. He will have a lot of time where he has the opportunity to try to make it back here. But the problem is this, and that is the gauntlet that is the AFC right now. There are so many, we already talked about it, but I'm going to say it again. There are so many young, very good, not only high potential, but established quarterbacks in the AFC of the National Football League. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, to name just those. There's other pretty good quarterbacks or young quarterbacks with potential in the AFC, but just those four quarterbacks are established to be very good at football and are, I believe, all under the age of 25, I believe. It is insanity. Sorry, I had to fix my music there for a second. Meaning, the chances of Joe Burrow, and the other thing about those quarterbacks, you can argue whether or not if Burrow or Herbert's better, or if Burrow, with a couple more years of development, will be on par with Josh Allen or Mahomes. You can argue that. But what you can't argue is that right now, take the quarterbacks out of it, at the very least, the Chiefs and the Bills have a better team than the Bengals. Now, like I said, I think the Bengals are going to address their needs, but, and again, as we kept mentioning, I'll try to make this quick because we talked about it a lot. The Bengals were beating better teams than them all the way. They almost did it again to win a Super Bowl, but the Titans were a better team. The Chiefs were a better team. It's tough to see them doing that again. They have clear holes in the roster. Yeah, they can be addressed, but as Czar mentioned, I believe in the last stream, every single season teams are gaining and losing pieces, and no team is going to be the exact same year to year. You can be pretty consistent at times, like the Chiefs have been in the AFC Championship 4 years in a row, but your team will never be just as good as it was. And so you never really know. I think it's more likely that Joe Burrow doesn't make it back to the Super Bowl in the next 5 or 6 years, let's say. Yeah, he's going to play a lot longer than that, but just thinking short-ish, medium, not exactly long term, it is hard to see without anything drastic happening or just an insane stroke of like he had this season. I mean, his wins through the playoffs were very narrow, and a lot of them were possibly lucky, depending on how you look at it. It's hard to see the Bengals making a run to the Super Bowl like that again, I believe, in that AFC. So, do I think they have peaked? I hope not, and I don't think necessarily that they have. But it is definitely, without some very strong play, a high likelihood that they don't make it back to the Super Bowl in the near future. Who knows what happens? Who knows what happens? Jamar Chase is a rookie. He just finished his rookie season. Joe Burrow just finished his first full NFL season, just finished his sophomore season. They are a young team. They have a young coach. They have a young roster, and they have a lot of really good young players. Who knows how much better they will develop? Hopefully, with all this experience and practice, they'll develop a lot. But you just never know. I think they will try to clog up those holes in the roster. And who knows? Maybe they will consistently be very, very good. But, so do I think they've peaked? No. But I can definitely see a future in which this is their peak of this Joe Burrow era of the Bengals. I know it sounds awful to say that in his second year, but there's just so much competition in that conference. It's insane. Yeah. You got anything else to say on that, Zara, before we move on to our last topic?
Well, I've just got a little bit, Lance. I've got a little bit of a bias here as a former offensive and defensive lineman because my school is smaller than yours. I keep going back to what do the Bengals have to do to make it back in this powerhouse that is the American Football Conference? Guys, we've said it till we're blue in the face. They've got to improve the offensive line. So I think if we really want to know what the Bengals' plans are, or at least what they should be, I think we got to start looking to the offensive line.
Yeah, I think everyone agrees
Whether
with
that's
that.
whether that's the NFL draft or potentially in free agency.
Yeah, getting, 5 rookie offensive linemen doesn't necessarily fix your problem. You need some veteran leadership on the team, definitely. I don't even know what the offensive line coach for the Bengals, I don't know how he's regarded. I don't know if that's something you need to look into fixing. But yeah, every time I said holes on the roster, holes on the team, things they need to patch up, things they need to fix, everyone listening to this, and Czar and I, everybody was thinking about the offensive line more so than anything else. Joe Burrow was sacked 9 times against the Titans. 7 times?
7 times in the Super Bowl.
7 times, I believe, in the Super Bowl.
7 times in the Super Bowl.
I don't know how he even survived to the end of that game. In 2 different playoff games.
It would have been 8 if he didn't get the ball out with Aaron Donald.
They weren't back.
It would have been 8.
Yeah, for real. I almost want to just count that one as a sack. But they weren't back-to-back, but in 2 playoff games in the same year, he was sacked a total of 16 times. That is a travesty. And he still made it to the Super Bowl and only lost by 3 points. That speaks to the young greatness of Joe Burrow, and that speaks to the absolute dog water that is the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line.
And when we look at the future free agency market coming up here in a couple months, this offseason, y'all, there's some pretty good. Y'all may not have heard of some of these guys, but these are some pretty good offensive linemen, right?
Yeah.
Cam Robinson out of Alabama, right? He's been in the league for a few years. He knows how to play ball. Brandon Sheriff from the new Washington Commanders, right? Dwayne Brown, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, Dr. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, Eric Fisher. Guys, we can go down the list. There's all sorts of all-pro linemen. The question with Cincinnati Bengals is how much money are they willing to throw at new offensive linemen? Or are they going to draft a new lineman? Because whatever happened this season, it's just not gonna work again.
I will say
Their skill guys are going to take them a pretty good distance, I think, but they need something that will help out their skill guys and get them over the hump.
Yeah.
In this case, they almost made it over the hump. They were this close.
Literally this close. And the 4th and 1 play that was ultimately why they didn't was lost because of that offensive line. So literally the skill guys took them as far as they could, and the offensive line still lost it for them. I want to say what Lance said in the chat, which is funny. Also, don't forget to thank Ryan Tannehill for giving everyone the opportunity for all this Bengals talk. That's a funny
Hey,
point. That's super
shout
true.
out to Air Tannehill.
Shout out to Ryan, bro. Shout out to Ryan. Can we get 2 claps for Ryan? Dude,
Oh
man's a
man,
legend.
that's another team too that even though their quarterback isn't part of that infinity gauntlet of the AFC, right? They can still pose a threat to the Cincinnati Bengals. Derrick Henry
Oh, we're
in
gonna
that
get
game
into it.
against
We're
the
gonna get
Bengals,
into
he
exactly what
played
you're
an
talking
off
about in
game,
just a second.
right? So
Yeah.
it's going to be tough. Tough
Let's.
road for sure.
So with that, let's just transition to our last topic. This should be pretty quick. I'm gonna go through my thoughts, let Czar get a chance to speak, and we're gonna go ahead and get out of here and call it an episode. And our last topic of the day. It's time for Kyrogus and Czar Nasty's way too early 2023 Super Bowl 57 picks. And we're just gonna get into it. I'll go first. I'll go through my thoughts on both of the conferences, who I think will make it, who I think will win. I will say, obviously, this is supposed to be a way too early prediction. I think the offseason, how teams draft, who they get in free agency, the offseason will significantly affect my thoughts on how the next season will go. But as of how it stands right now, I think the AFC is much easier to analyze and predict than the NFC. But again, this is all subject to change. But let me just go through it. AFC, I think you have 3 clear top teams. I think the AFC, it's going to be the Bills, the Chiefs, or the Titans. And this could change or sway one way or another a lot this offseason. If you want to throw based on how they repair their offensive line and patch up their defense a little bit, the Bengals I'd probably say would be 4th in that line, but also the Bengals are in the same conference as the Ravens, who you never know when they're going to pop back off and have a great year again. You never know if the Chargers will actually make the playoffs and be as good as they look like they could be. So I don't really know where to throw the Bengals in the mix, but I think it's clear that the Bills and the Chiefs and probably the Titans are going to be the top 3 teams in the AFC. I'd want to say the Chiefs, but I'm going to say I think the most likely AFC champion next year is going to be the Buffalo Bills. So I'm going to predict that from the AFC making the Super Bowl, as of right now, I'm going to predict that the Buffalo Bills are going to go to the Super Bowl from the AFC. Now, looking at the NFC, it is much tougher in my opinion. I don't feel like it is nearly as clear who the top teams are or who is clearly going to be a winner. And honestly, it almost feels right now like it's going to be the Los Angeles Rams again. Going through the teams that are clearly probably the top or at least top of their divisions or at least playoff teams. Look at the Cardinals. They looked so bad the back half of the year and are now disputing with starting quarterback Kyler Murray. The first half of the 2022 season, they looked like they were going to be a force to be reckoned with for a long time with that young quarterback, with one of the best receivers in the league, DeAndre Hopkins. The Cardinals just looked great. They looked really bad the back half of the year. They looked really bad in their playoff game, and now their young, super promising quarterback they're having disputes with. So I don't think there's any way, as of the facts right now, you could accurately or logically predict the Cardinals going to the Super Bowl. If you look at the Cowboys, my Dallas Cowboys, I say that like I'm Skip Bayless. I'm not Skip Bayless. I'm a Cowboys fan. I think they're held back by a number of things. I truly believe that they have the talent on the roster.
Front office.
Anyways, if you want to let me talk, Czar, before I give you your chance, thank you. I have my notes right here, and the words you said are in my notes. Let me just finish. The Cowboys, I believe, are held back by a number of things. I truly, honestly believe that they have the talent on the roster to be a true NFC Championship contender. But I think they're held back by a number of things. Mainly, and this is exactly what I'm going to just quote what I wrote in my notes. I think they are held back by the head coach, the front office, and I think that as a team, they're missing that it factor, that glue, that synergy that just gets the whole team clicking and buzzing. I think they're missing whatever that is. And I think that starts with the management. I think that starts with the head coach in the front office. I think something is missing there. But the problem is we've changed so many things up in recent years. We've had different coaches, different coordinators, and there's promise and potential, but nothing ever seems to click. I'm not really a huge fan of Mike McCarthy. I don't think Dak Prescott is a super duper top of the league star quarterback, but I think he is probably the 10th or 11th best quarterback in the league, and I think that is good enough to be a NFC Championship contender and possibly make a Super Bowl. I think the roster is extremely talented, and I think they have the potential and ability to contend for the NFC Championship and hopefully possibly make a Super Bowl, but I don't feel good enough about the situation to make that prediction. And I have done that in the past. You look at the Buccaneers. Their roster is still great, but they lost Tom Brady. Again, if the offseason goes crazy and Aaron Rodgers signs with the Titans or the Buccaneers, they might sway and become my favorite in those conferences. But as of what we know right now, the Buccaneers do not have Tom Brady, meaning they're on the hunt for a new quarterback. No matter how good their team and roster is, the GOAT, the greatest game manager quarterback of all time, is no longer on the team. No matter what happens, that team has lost a lot of its synergy and glue with Tom Brady being gone. So I don't think you can logically... I think you can still make the prediction that they're going to be a good team, and who knows what run they might make in the playoffs if they make it there. But thinking about it logically and just based on everything we know right now, I don't think the Cardinals or the Cowboys or the Buccaneers have a better chance of making it next year than the Rams. Now let's look at Green Bay, the number one team in the NFC this year, the current home for the most valuable player of the National Football League, Aaron Rodgers. Green Bay was the number one seed, got the first round bye, lost to the Niners. They looked so bad. And the thing is, I said they looked bad. They did not look like a number one team in the NFC. They did not even look close to that. The thing is, with Green Bay, with their roster and what's happening, they look like they're only going to get worse. Anything can happen. You never know who's going to pop off, who's going to develop. But just straight up looking at it on paper, Green Bay looks like it's only going to get worse, and Aaron Rodgers is only going to get older and decline a little bit. So, yes, they were amazing. Yes, I think they will still be an NFC contender next year if they keep Aaron Rodgers. But I don't think they're going to be any better than they were this year, and this year they clearly couldn't get it done. So I can't go with Green Bay either. And I think that's pretty much the only teams that are legitimately in the NFC conversation. I mean, yeah, there's the Niners who are pretty good, but they still have Jimmy G at quarterback, which I don't think he's necessarily going to lose games for them necessarily, but I don't think they have any right to believe they have more of a chance to make it than the Rams. So, with all that said, I think, so my prediction as of right now, my way too early prediction for the 2023 Super Bowl 57, my prediction is going to be that it is going to be a reappearance from the Los Angeles Rams, and they're going to go against the Buffalo Bills. And my prediction is going to be that the Buffalo Bills take home the Lombardi Trophy. So I'm going to say Rams versus Bills in the next Super Bowl. As of right now, that's my prediction, and the Bills are going to take it home. Czar, the floor is yours.
Well, I'll tell you what, in chat, if you're part of Bill's Mafia, start bringing out the tables, because that's a pretty wild prediction, but I like it. Gosh, way too early picks. I'll tell you what, we've had a lot of tough questions on this podcast today.
Yep, that's the last one.
You get what I'm saying?
Last question you gotta go with.
We've had a lot of tough questions.
A lot of tough questions.
So, as I'm going through a list of all the NFL teams here, just to kind of organize my thoughts a little bit, two questions are going through my head. One, will Kyro please tell me which team he thinks is going to have the worst record next season? And two, when I look at all these teams, there aren't that many contenders that I see, or at least potential contenders. But the NFC, look at the NFC, I think Kyro he hit it right on the head. You got the Green Bay Packers and the Los Angeles Rams, but the Packers have question marks. Will they have their MVP quarterback? Will he even be there? Will he retire? Will he go somewhere else?
Do you mind if I butt in real quick, Czar?
Yeah.
I just wanted to flesh out my thoughts on the Rams real quick. I named all the reasons I think the other NFC contenders aren't going to make the Super Bowl, but just to nail in the coffin, like you said, just pinpoint exactly why I think the Rams, among all the reasons that I think the other teams aren't going to make it, the Rams still have a stacked roster. We don't know who or if they're really going to lose anyone significant yet. And, yeah, I hate to say it, but they seem like the favorites right now to come out of the NFC. I will say my gut doesn't think that will end up being the case. I don't feel like in my gut it's going to be the Rams again, but I don't think you can make a great argument right now for any other NFC team being above them. So, right now, way too early, Rams, Bills. Green Bay, all the question marks. Aaron Rodgers getting older. Is he even going to come back? Back to you, Czar.
Well, the AFC, I keep thinking about the AFC, and the AFC is definitely complex. Oh, real quick, before I go to the AFC, I want to give y'all a team or two to look at potentially. Not necessarily that I think they'll win the Super Bowl, but I just have some teams to look at. Really, I guess for the NFC, Kyro has said enough about the Dallas Cowboys. They're gonna stomp on teams. It's gonna be fun for a week. Trayvon Diggs is gonna make the Instagram reels, and then go to the playoffs, and we play it at home. And you already know what happens when the Cowboys have a home game in the playoffs. Opposing fans posting on Snapchat. The Cowboys fans are still celebrating. We've got a minute and a half left, guys. It's gonna be the same thing. The Cowboys are not gonna win the Super Bowl. If I turn my brain on at all, that's the only logical thing that can come out of my mouth. But another team I want to look at real quick is the Seattle Seahawks. Were the Seattle Seahawks terrible? Yes, very much so. Did they have injuries that really impacted their season in a negative way?
That's true.
Also, yes. The question with Seattle is, can their offense go back to what it used to be? Can Russell Wilson stay healthy? Will Russell Wilson even be there? Because there's been rumors that he'll try to bounce and go somewhere
It's a
else.
big question.
Will Russell Wilson even be in Seattle? And if he is in Seattle, can he stay healthy? And can DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and everybody else
Dominate
on the offensive side of the ball,
NFL secondaries.
can they dominate?
Russell
And can they allow Russ to cook? That's
Will
the big
they
question.
let Russ cook? I gotta say, I am obligated by law to say this, but the Seattle Seahawks are my second favorite team in the NFL. My girlfriend's family is from Seattle, actually, and she's a massive Seahawks fan, and she roots for the Cowboys anytime they are not fighting the birds that wear the blue and green, and so anytime the Seahawks are not going up against those beautiful navy blue stars, I'm a Seahawks fan. So I would love to see that for the Seahawks. I'm a huge DK Metcalf fan and Russell Wilson. They got amazing receivers. However, their season was so lackluster this year, and their offensive line is really bad, and their defense is nowhere near what it used to be. I didn't think to even really consider them for NFC contenders. But I would love to be proven wrong. So are you saying you think the Seahawks are coming out of the NFC, Czar? Is that what you're saying live on your early prediction?
I think the Rams will come out of the NFC. I think the Rams and Packers will meet in the NFC Championship, and I think the Rams will make it to Super Bowl 57. However, I think the Seattle Seahawks are going to come back this year, and they're going to make some noise and potentially shake up the
The wild
NFC
card
West.
round.
They're going to shake up the NFC West, and you got to realize the NFC West is pretty stacked. Rams, Seahawks, Niners, Cardinals,
Yeah.
right? None
They
of those
were
teams,
considered the
none
best
of those
division
teams are
in
bad.
football, right? Or is it them
think
and the
they're-
Chiefs division?
I
Or at least
think
probably the top two, I think.
I think the NFC and AFC West are both pretty good. So I think there's going to be a few teams that are pretty good next season that aren't even going to get a shot, which is unfortunate, but that's just sometimes how it goes.
So that said, you're saying, what is your Super Bowl prediction and who wins it?
Oh, Super Bowl prediction. Well, when we go to the AFC, there's a few more teams in the AFC to look at, but when it comes down to it, the Tennessee Titans are not going to make the Super Bowl.
Not with their current roster. I did want to note that with the right quarterback, they're probably definitely in the top three favorites, even without a quarterback, probably. But with the right quarterback, they shoot up.
Everybody knows I respect the Tennessee Titans. I love Nashville. I love paying a visit to the 615 every now and again. But I just don't see them making the Super Bowl. Can they make a run in the playoffs? Sure. They've done it with Tannehill and King Henry before. They've beaten Brady and the Patriots. We've seen them win big games. Do I think they can go to the big game and win it? I don't think so.
With what we know and see right now, I tend to agree. But enough hooting and hollering. What is your prediction? Who comes out of the AFC? Who comes out of the NFC? What's the matchup? And who takes home that beautiful Lombardi trophy, Czar? Let me know right now.
My prediction for the AFC, the Bills are going to be good, but they're not going to make the Super Bowl. The Bengals are not going to make the Super Bowl next season. I'm taking the Rams against the Kansas City Chiefs.
A rematch from what some call the greatest Monday Night Football game of all time / regular season game of all time. That would hopefully be an offensive shootout. I literally was so close to saying Rams Chiefs, but I'm glad that we are going with different answers. Rams Bills is my prediction. Rams Chiefs is Rambo's prediction. Way too early 2023 Super Bowl 57 picks. Now we're going to take the wager if one of those scenarios happens. If it's Rams Chiefs. So who do you think wins, Czar, out of that? I said I think Bills take it home. Who wins?
I think the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Kansas City Chiefs can get it done. However, I'm going to add on a little bit to this. I think it's possible that the Rams could jump out to an early 14-0 lead.
But you're going to say the Chiefs.
I'm going to say the Chiefs are going to come back with a vengeance this year.
All right.
The TikToks are going to be out of the way, and I think the Chiefs are going to get it done. And Patrick Mahomes is going to get his second Super Bowl ring.
All right, so if it is a Rams-Chiefs Super Bowl and the Chiefs win, I'm not even going to give Zara the option to consider or accept or reject. I'm just going to force him. If the Chiefs versus the Rams is the Super Bowl matchup and the Kansas City Chiefs win the Lombardi, Zara, I'll give you $50. But if the Rams go against the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl, and the Bills win the Super Bowl, Zara's giving me $50. He's got no say in the matter. That's just what it is. But I actually want to change my answer. I was looking at Dumas in the chat, and he actually convinced me. Texans versus Commanders, life savings on it. I'm honestly doing that. I know I'm a Cowboys fan in the NFC East, but I'm gonna put literally every cent that is in my bank account on the Commanders going to the Super Bowl and beating the Houston Texans. 100% lock. Imagine the payout, bro. Oh, man, that's hilarious. But yeah, that's going to be our show for you. Thank you, everyone who listened. If you're watching on YouTube, please like. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think. What is your super early 2023 Super Bowl prediction? What did you think about all the rest of our topics here? If you listened all the way to this point, thank you so much. That means the world to me. Thank you to everybody live in chat, which right now looks like Lance and Dumas. We had King Rusty in here earlier, a couple others. But really appreciate it, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Imagine the narrative. Could watch Kyro full time. Bro, means the world. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you guys so much for listening. It's been a heck of a show. Hopefully there's stuff to talk about in the NFL so we can do more NFL Kyro casts during the offseason. But I cannot wait for this to be a weekly show next season. It's going to be so much fun. Way better than anything you've seen yet up to this point. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Peace out, everybody.